Hiya. You're supposed to start off saying something like, it's wonderful to be here and thank you for this opportunity, things like that.
Okay, Conor.
Great. The reality is, I hate talking about this. I hate talking about the National Spatial Strategy. It's up there with, does my bum look big in these trousers? While it was being prepared, when it was being implemented, and at every possible public opportunity I've had since the introduction of the National Spatial Strategy, I have been saying, for God's sake, stop. For God's sake, take the thing down. There was no man happier than myself to see the thing being wrapped up formally and finally by Phil Hogan saying, nothing has happened in the last 10 years, so we'll get rid of it. I want to touch a little bit on why it failed as well, just in the same way that Rob did. One of the ways I want you to understand how wrong it was and why it went so wrong is a thing I need to graphically illustrate for you. I once had the misfortune of asking a room full of planners to put their hands up, and for the planners in the room who'd actually read the National Spatial Strategy to put their hands up. I'll never make that mistake again, so I won't do it to you. But I'll work on the assumption that perhaps a lot of you have never actually laid your hands on it. So I'm going to pretend that you in the room here are the people of Ireland. And this is the National Spatial Strategy. This is the strategy for you in the Midlands. That's the strategy for you in the border counties. That's the strategy for you in the Midwest. That's for you in the Midlands. That's for you in the South. That's for you in the Southeast. That's for you and wherever else I've forgotten to mention. Where have I forgotten to mention? I've forgotten to mention somewhere. I can't remember where I've forgotten to mention. I know where I've forgotten to mention. The other half of the room. Dublin. There were 15 pages of vision in the National Spatial Strategy for Ireland. There were 3 lines for Dublin. She wants me.
Yeah, you're 50 minutes involved.
She says I have to keep going. And, as Peter pointed out, to add insult to injury, if they were just blank, like the piece of paper I gave to Peter, it'd be grand. They weren't blank. They were a slap in the face. The plan for Dublin was to consolidate its growth. Bad Dublin. No more growth for you. It's a bad thing. We want balanced regional development. Now, at the end of this talk, I'm going to say something outrageous to you. That if we bring out a new version of the National Spatial Strategy, I, to the surprise of my planning colleagues in the room, will advocate that it should propose and implement balanced regional development. And do you know what that'll mean? It'll mean that half the document will be about Dublin. It'll mean that less than 30% of the document will be about the areas outside of Dublin and Cork. That's what I'm going to say to you at the end. This is why I hate giving this talk. The other reason I hate giving it is this. We use the word plan-led like it's a form of breathing. Plan, the verb to make provision for the future, is the same word that we are taught or we teach people when they become architects. They are not the same thing. When my daughter was about 4 or 5, I went out to do some field work on the outskirts of Navan. I was doing a plan for the town of Navan. We were also having some work done at home, so she had become accustomed to seeing architects' plans lying around the house. So at the outskirts of Navan, I got out of the car to try and get my bearings, and it happened to be at a place where some roadworks were going on. And Sive tottered over to me and she said, "Is this Navan?" I said, "Yes." And she looked around at the building works and said, "When is Navan going to be finished?" Those of us in the room who are architects, who are so afflicted, and there's quite a lot of afflicted people here, use the word plan in a very specific way. And the plan means we have a very clear idea of what the desired outcome is going to be. And after a fixed period of time and a fixed allocation of resources, that's what's going to happen. And if it doesn't, we make the builder take a piece of wall down on our first day on site just to show him who's boss. She's nodding. You've done that before. We can force, we can coerce, we can penalise somebody if they don't do exactly what they want. Now, you, the people of Dublin, and you, the people of the rest of the country, I can stand here and I can say to you, I would like, you know those awful exercises you go to where there's a facilitator and they make you all stand up and stretch and do that sort of stuff? I'm not going to do it. But I could say, if you don't behave, what I could do is say to you, I want all of you people on that side of the room to go over and to sit on the lap of somebody on that side of the room. You're not doing it. One of the problems of that word plan is it carries with it the implication that you have the ability to make people do what you say in your plan. I want all you people in Dublin to have your next job and put it over in the rest of the country. Go on, do it. I have no power to compel you to do it. One of our problems is continually in land use planning in Ireland, we use the word plan as if it's the ability to compel or somehow or other bring about something without the ownership of the land, without the budget, without the permission, without the ability or knowledge to make it happen. You can't make somebody open a factory in Mayo. You can't make somebody open a new set of industrial premises here in Glenties unless they want it. That's the way things work. We can do incentives, and I sit on the bus with those people that the IDA bring into Ireland, and we're expected to bring them to a number of locations which I won't mention, and they sit in the bus and we show them the place, and then they get back in the bus and they say, "Can we go to Dublin now?" I say, no, we have to go to 2 more places first. And they get out the next place and say, "Can we go to Dublin now?" I say, no, we have to go to another 2 places. Right? They don't want to go there. The choice isn't to go to somewhere as crystal clear, beautiful, wonderful as Westport is, or the outskirts of Dublin. It's a choice of going to Ireland or Singapore. That's the choice for FDI. That's the choice. So, the first thing we have to understand is that this word that we toss around in this room, plans serve. Plans serve. They don't lead. The Queen of England's crest, next time you get to look at it, has small little writing down at the bottom in German. Now, we're not going to talk about her German relatives just today, not a very happy subject this week. But at the bottom of it, in German, are the words, Ich dienen. I dienen. Serve. I serve. Real planning serves. It finds out what people need, where they need it, and it puts in place, it makes provision for their ambitions to be realised. Okay, 2 more uncomfortable truths. "54% of Ireland live in Leinster." 54%. And that's increasing, not decreasing. You can't make those people stop living there. You can't make those people move somewhere else because they're already there. And if you look at the demographics, the little tiny pink wiggling ovaries of the females of them are going to have their babies in that region, and there are going to be more people there with every decade that passes. This phenomena of core and periphery and the tensions that arise from it are not unique to Ireland. This is an issue that is occurring all over the world and has been doing so for over 400 years. For over 400 years, since the breakdown of traditional structures of agriculturally based wealth, for as long as that process has been happening, urbanisation and a movement of people from peripheral areas to core areas has been continuing all over the world. It's not unique to Ireland. That's a very important thing for us to start to understand in beginning to address this issue. And when I talk about addressing it, I am not advocating gloom or doom or hopelessness, but I do advocate that the best way to get yourself out of a hole is to start off saying, I am in a hole, and stop digging. And a huge amount of the policies that we saw so articulately described by Rob in terms of the National Spatial Strategy were things that sought to dig the hole deeper. Not only are the population there, I have one here. Not only are the population there, but the generation of wealth is there as well. So each of these circles represents the GVA, the gross value addition. And you can see, if it's at the back of the room, it might be difficult. Up at the top on the border there, the border area produces 6.5% of national GVA. The West produces 7.7%. The Midwest, 7.2%. The Southeast, 7.4%. The Midlands producing 3.6%. Dublin, 42%. And the Mid-East area beside it, 8%. And the Southwest, over 17%. Now, that's not balanced. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's comfortable. But they're the facts. And those facts are a reality that we've got to start to plan around and talk around. So when I say to you that you should be outraged that our National Spatial Strategy devoted 3 lines to the principal source of wealth, to the principal location of population for the entire country, you should not be surprised to hear that it failed. The last thing is something which I could and would like to speak at length about, and it's the subject of your next topic and partly of your one this evening, is about rural Ireland. Another uncomfortable fact is that all of Ireland is urbanising. All of Ireland is urbanising. That does not mean it's going to Dublin or going to Cork or going to Galway. Within each of our regions, within each of our county, we are urbanising. Those little bars, I'm going to step away for a second. These little bars here show the percentage that are urban and rural. And in all of them, you can see that there's an almost equal balance currently between urban and rural. Within our rural counties, we are urbanising. This is a fact. It's a reality. That reality carries a profoundly influential change for our politics. How am I for time? 2 minutes. The profoundly changed implication for our politics is this, that urban politics and rural politics are profoundly different. At the foundation of the state, 60% of Ireland lived in rural areas. A third lived in urban areas. Now it is the exact opposite. 2/3 of us are urban. 2/3 of us. A half living in Leinster. We're about to begin the process of realising what happens when politics changes from rural politics, which is laissez-faire, leave us alone, let me get on with my own life, to urban politics, which is about making places work. And urban politics is about very specific promises and very specific performance in very specific places. It's a type of politics for which our political system and our political parties, and our 2 biggest political parties in particular, are woefully unprepared. So, coming to conclusion, I'm going to say to you that I can't tell you what the next National Spatial Strategy should have, but I would advise that if it's to be successful, it will have these characteristics. It will be ambitious, exactly as has been said, that each place in the country, as the original NSS said, has the potential and should be helped to realise its full potential. It will be integrating, and again, Rob articulately described the need and the desirability of all the different types of sectors to be integrated in the plan. But most of all, it will be differentiated. There will be different plans and different futures for different parts of Ireland. We will no longer seek to have one size fits all and one for everybody in the audience. Again, echoing what Rob said, it will be workable. It will be workable because it will have specific implementations, targets, resources, instruments and budgets assigned to it. It will no longer be something that is merely lines on paper. It will be orderly. There will be hierarchies. We have seen, for instance, the extraordinary success in Peters County and the other counties of the West Coast of the Wild Atlantic Way. A classic example of how we took things that have existed for decades, but by putting them all together, we could make the whole greater than the sum of the parts. The Wild Atlantic Way is a tourism offering that is visible from San Francisco. You can't see the Ring of Kerry from San Francisco. It's too small on its own, but when you put them all together, we have an enormous internationally famous tourism offering. We can do that for dozens of other things where we can start to act in a way that produces offerings that have international visibility. It has to be competitive. We have got to find ways of saying that some areas are more suited and more intrinsically appropriate for development to go than others. We certainly need balancing, but it's not going to be balanced regional development of Dublin versus the rest. It'll be balances within the county. How does rural Mayo deal with urban Mayo? How does rural Donegal deal with urban Donegal? How does Western Donegal deal with the interior Donegal? It will be accountable. Our NSS is a standing disgrace that every local authority in Ireland is now, since 2010, compelled by law to demonstrate that the county development plan will achieve the population targets set down in the NSS. The NSS is utterly devoid of democratic accountability. Nobody set those figures apart from a group of people sitting in the Custom House who are accountable to nobody. And the development and the potential of towns and villages, the length and breadth of Ireland, are doomed to fail if they don't conform with figures set down in that unaccountable way. And finally, it will be proportionate. It will be a type of plan that, if it's produced, will genuinely have 50% of its document dealing with the Dublin area. And to put a shape on it, for those of us who love drawings, Ireland is a much more complex country than many of us realise, either in terms of economics or indeed of administration. I believe, and I would propose to you all, that in going forward we need to have systems and plans, many plans, that recognise that difference. And our West Coast is an area of extraordinary complexity over very short periods of time, of distance. Our Midlands are areas that are profoundly different. We don't have rural Ireland versus urban Ireland. We have rural Irelands. There are a number of different rural Irelands with different potentials and different problems. The Midlands is one of the most extraordinary and sometimes difficult of them all. And then finally we have the great economic engines of the East and the South East. You don't have to like them. You do have to love them, and we all have to nurture them. Those of you in the room who've got kids, we all have one in the family we have to learn to love, to get on with. Dublin is our version of that, and there are other areas that are a joy, like the place we're standing at the moment, but they are all our family. We have to have plans, an integrated plan that has something for everybody in the country, and not just for those areas that we seek to strengthen. Thank you.